Hello K&W fans, we're back here today with another of my series on how I designed the track plan for each one of these scenes and why I did it that way. And we're here for the Charleston Elevator scene, and as you can see, it's quite simple, right? There's just 3 tracks. There's the spur that leads back from around Garden City that I needed to add, just to add some more added length for that siding, and that's just about it. And this was done for 2 reasons. One, you can see the backdrop here and the front of the benchwork. This is about 12 inches in width. So obviously I didn't have a lot of room to work with. The only other place where I had just this small amount of room was down here below for Lamar. And you can see how much I did with that. So you might wonder why I didn't do the same up here. And that's because I actually wanted to represent the simplicity of a good number of small Kansas towns and the fact that they really only have a siding or a spur for a grain elevator. And so given the small space I had, and given that I already did quite a bit down here in Lamar for small spaces, I wanted to just keep this one simple. And so we'll start here with the main line, and you can see how wide it swings. And the point of that is to make sure I had enough room in this shorter space, because Charleston Elevator actually sits in about a 15-foot wall space, and Garden City, coming off the helix here, is only about 8 feet. So I wanted to preserve as much space as I could for those industries. So I had the main line swing out wide, and then it follows the front of the benchwork fairly closely, and that was to make sure I had enough room to have an industry at all. I'm not too worried about derailments on the edge, but I do plan to add a fascia that will stick up above the foam at least 1/8 of an inch. Which hopefully will catch any derailments, but I do request that operators follow their train closely in this area. But then again, there's only really 2 turnouts at this end and 1 at the far end you have to really worry about. And after many operations through this area, I haven't had a derailment yet, fingers crossed. Anyway, before I actually glued any track or even cork down, I did take some measurements of this kit. This is a Walther's grain elevator kit. Some width measurements to make sure it would fit right up against the wall and then leave me enough room with 2 tracks in the main line. And the reason why I didn't just go with a single track is the actual prototype has a total of 3 tracks, including the main line. One would be a service track, which is where the train cars are unloaded and or loaded, and then a siding, which I'm guessing allows longer trains to be parked, or it just gives an opportunity for the switcher to do its job on the siding without interfering with the main. At the end of this video, you're going to see some photos of the prototype so you can see how I designed it based on the prototype. And in reality, this first siding off of the main, the track here in the middle, is actually quite a bit longer than the industry track. So it does leave the possibility that trains do use that siding to make switches so they don't interfere with the main. I chose not to do it that way because I wanted to have a longer service track. So switching does have to use the main because you can see the turnouts are stacked one right after the other. So there just isn't any room to avoid going onto the main. But given that I know how operations are going to work on my layout, that shouldn't be a problem, and hasn't been yet. I'll move the cars out of the rear real quick just so you can see the track. I know it's not that interesting to see without any weathering or ballast on it, but just want to clear that out. You can see that I've added one of these whistle stop models safety rails. I might add one more, but I think the prototype has just a short one. So obviously they don't have a big crew when they unload these things, and that's one thing I don't know. I'm hoping I can find out at some point, maybe just a call to the elevator would be enough, is how exactly this thing is switched, whether a local train arrives with its train and then that crew actually switches the cars to have them unloaded or loaded, which I guess it would probably just be loaded. And so a short safety rail might indicate that it's just a couple of guys working. There's no point, I guess, to have a much longer one, which I've seen much larger elevators do, because they'll have several guys going down and opening lids and closing them again. But anyway, moving on here to the main line. So since I had the main line follow the front of the benchwork, it really limited what I was able to do for a broad curve around the end of this room you can see here. Because I wanted to maintain my 24-inch radius, which is much tighter than I would have liked, but given some of the corners that I had and turns that I had available, I had to keep it as small as possible. But I did maintain my 24-inch radius, and so that's what that looks like. Now this hallway that this layout is built in is 5 feet wide from stud to stud. So when you add a 1/2 inch of sheetrock, that makes it just somewhat less of 5 feet. But with a 24-inch radius, I was able to make the turn from the main line here around to the Wichita industrial area, but I had to end up right against the wall. And we're going to discuss that more in my next How I Design series for the Wichita Industrial Park. But moving on, the simplicity, like I said, is obviously apparent. Just 3 straight tracks. The area in Kansas where this Charleston Elevator is very flat. About the only elevation changes you see are related to the Arkansas River in Kansas, where there are some depressions and gullies and whatnot. But that is why the track is very straight, is because there's not many obstacles for railroads to have to build around. And so that's really why I designed this the way that I did. I guess that's about it now for the explanation of how I designed the Charleston track plan. Like I said, not much to it, but hopefully that was an easy explanation for you to understand about why I did it this way. And just hang on here for another minute real quick, just a couple seconds, I guess, for just a few photos of the prototype, so you can see an up-close look of what the real Charleston Elevator looks like and what I'm hoping to eventually model once this scene's all complete. Hang on just a second.